Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am Tahir Dinsa and you are watching SDTV. There were development paradigms deep and steeped into the history, thousands of years, hundreds of years. You would make a bridge, construct a bridge, keeping the historic flow of the rivers. So, what was the flood and in that year? So, it should be like this. Everything was historic. One thing is changing everything, and that is climate change. Everything is erratic now. Now there is a understanding that development, especially infrastructure, should measure up to the climate change. Instead of history as a guide, you need to use your imagination. So the future, how the future would be. And I was just listening in a conversation. Can we adopt the infrastructure to the climate, which is already there? So these are complex issues and problems and the policy things for which we need to consult specialists who, who day in and day out work on these things and come up with genius solutions. We have today with us Mr. Imran Khan. Imran Khan, you are a specialist on this issue with KfW, and we know you have vast experience horizontally, academically, and vertically also on the subject. Please say something on this as a basic premise, and then we'll rumble on for one or two more questions.
Thank you, Tahir. Yeah, it's just interesting question, but equally complex because we are talking about two things that are separate but intertwined. On the one side is development, especially the development of infrastructure, and on the second side is climate change. Both have a relationship based on a dichotomy, and that dichotomy is generally called cause and effect relationship. So on one side, we develop infrastructure and think of making it in a way that it can sustain disasters that can come in any manifestation, in any shape, and any scale. On the other hand, we are saying is that that infrastructure, to what cost does it come? Is it simply in terms of money or sometimes displacement of population? But does it also affect climate? So the risks that we are talking about are sometimes amplified by the development process. So I think that's why I call it, it's very intricate and complex, because we need to do it and think of it in a manner in which they become coherent as part of one body. And this can be done through deep thinking and more analysis. I can go further into the details that how integrated any development, climate integrated development planning can be. And I'll give you 4 or 5 steps that at least can help us map out what the development process could be that doesn't undermine or harm our environment.
You know, most of the time, Pakistan has an experience in building infrastructure, especially the civil work. A lot of experience. We built big dams like Tarbela and Mangla and small and micro dam and everywhere. But the issue was for as a storage and as a powerhouse. No dam was designed keeping in mind that it needs to control floods. No dam was designed to understand that the local community which is going to be displaced should cater to that as well, for very obvious reasons, because a good time of development and all the coming and no way of getting electric and all that run of the mill things. Now suddenly the things have changed. For example, the government fears that the grid would be out of demand because of the renewables. So the dams might lose their function as electricity generator or may not be. But the thing is, the paradigm is totally changed. Do you think we have some way where we can improvise in some way to bring the current infrastructure to the point where it becomes useful for the future, and the knowledge of the people who handle all these things, that is also improved, because ultimately they need to lead the convoy.
Yeah, so just quickly on the your observation on whether dams are required or are they still deemed necessary when it comes to power supply, or the transmission grid, is it necessary? Uh, I think rather than answering that straightforward, I would say is that the demand when it comes to power is so amplified and so on a scale that only one source of power can't address it. You will have to diversify the source so that the supply is generated on a level that can meet not only existing but also future demands. So I would say you mentioned about the renewable revolution. It's happening, and in Pakistan, it's taking leaps, which is a good thing. But what I would say is that we need to invest when it comes to the government, especially in policy setting and also in uh, 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 financial aspects, that it gives more and more incentives to not only to people but also to the private sector, which can generate more resources. And when it comes to infrastructure and how can it be adapted to it, there's again not a singular solution is available. It depends on the context, the infrastructure that is developed. Few things or some things might work in one area for one infrastructure, but it might be redundant in another area. So when we think of adaptation strategies and also the development of infrastructure, we need to think of the context. What harm are we doing, and how can we protect natural assets as well as the public assets from climate risk in future? And as I said, you can project it can happen, but you can't project the scale of it. How bigger could it be? Because the change is incremental, and you need to adapt your strategies that are also sometimes incremental. Sometimes in the manner coming from the government and institutional financial aspects, we work on ad hoc basis, whether it's operation and maintenance or whether it's adaptation. So what we need to do is to develop things, mechanisms, scenarios in our project plans that can address future challenges and risks. And this is how we should start developing infrastructure. Otherwise, we'll be investing, reinvesting, and investing again. It will become a vicious cycle which will eat up all public resources that are available while we continue to compromise on public assets such as water, such as
Right.
forest greenery.
Right now, it's more of a wish list that you should have an infrastructure which is climate smart or climate integration, or you should adopt it. It's a wish list. And when would you think the time would come when it will become inevitable?
I would also just frame it in a way that wishes, whims are sometimes the sources of wisdom, which we also call collective wisdom.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
if
yeah.
there was no
Yeah.
wish or whim, there wouldn't have been any innovation.
Anyway, yeah, right. I
That's
agree.
what we drives us as human beings. So what I would say is that we need to think out of the box. And sometimes for institutions, which we call governments, it becomes very difficult to think out of the box because they have boxed themselves in such paradigms and policies and structures
Yeah.
which do not allow them to operate more seamlessly. So they try to converge things on seams rather than in more coherent manner.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest challenge we have when it comes to planning of infrastructure, planning of development, or other on the human side as well. So like, for example, I'll give you an example that we are investing in social protection in a sense by paying people a stipend or some money one time.
Handout.
And we consider it, handouts, I would say, that's the right word. And we think it will do wonders. It will remedy people's ailments, which is not happening. And that's why it becomes a burden. So we need to channel human energy into a process which can recycle other problems and channel them in a direction which can become productive.
Yeah, thank you very much, Imran sir. Just to sum it up quickly, I think the answer is in his last conversation, and that is very important. I read a sentence somewhere that in the end, everything is social. And that is what the expert has just said, that it should start from keeping in mind the social paradigm, and it only then that can be seamless. And there is one more, negative, I would say, which I personally think we can draw it, that the policy planning should be separated from the implementation partner and the government, and there should be some way that the policy planning should be implemented. With this, we come to the end of the program. Bye for now.